Good evening, gentlemen. The Torah says that the Jews left Egypt with chamushim. They went out. The word chamushim. What does the word chamushim mean? So it comes from one source says it's 1 out of every 5 Jews left Egypt. Chamushim means they had 5 children, or they came out armed. Those are 3 basic interpretations. I want to focus on the one that says that only 1 out of 5 Jews left Egypt. Means 80% of the Jews died in Egypt. That's the Medrash. So you had talking about millions of Jews that died in the Makas and the Choshech when it was dark. However, Rabbi Kamenetsky asked the question, how could it be that millions of Jews died and the Egyptians didn't notice? And how can a plague affect the Jews more than the Egyptians? The Egyptians didn't die in such great numbers in this plague. So how could Jews die in such big numbers? He seems perplexed by that. He has a very interesting answer to this question. He said the answer is not that millions of Jews died, is that a certain amount of Jews died during this plague of darkness. But when it talks about, millions of Jews died with Chamushim, it talks about their children, their descendants, their into the future. So in other words, their potential descendants. So not that millions of Jews died at a moment in time, but a certain amount died, and their descendants in the future are included in that. And he brings a proof. And what's the proof that he brings? He brings a proof that when there was the first murder in history, when Cain killed Hevel, God says the blood of your brother in plural is crying out to me. It was only one person, but it's not just his blood, but also the descendants. So the same thing in Egypt is that not only would they, let's say 1,000 died, but since they're going to have multiple generations, so you can talk about millions over the course of time until Mashiach comes. And the famous story is told, I think it's Rabbi Heinemann, who gave very passionate shiurim. I think it was Torah V'das. It was 1930. It was a snowstorm like we had recently. People didn't want to leave their houses, and finally, only 2 or 3 boys show up to davening and show up to learning in the shul and in the yeshiva. So he gives a speech, and he's screaming and he's yelling and he's acting like there's a million people in the room. So he said, Rabbi, there's only like 2 or 3 kids in the room. Like, why are you jumping up and down and screaming and yelling like you have a full clay? He goes, you think I'm just talking to you? I'm talking to you and your children, and your descendants as well. So that's the lesson that I think Rabbi Kamenetsky, I think, has a wonderful thing. It's not just a large amount, it's that the potential for so many generations is what the Torah is alluding to without millions of Jews dying. Have a wonderful evening.